Good evening, everybody, to the regular City Council meeting, August 1st, 2022 at 6 p.m. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Dennehy? Absent. Councilmember Schmischer?
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Stein?
Here.
Councilmember Tracy? Absent. Councilmember Worthington?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Here.
Mayor Smith? Absent.
And I do not see Rob Meeker in the audience. And so I'd ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. And if Ed Norden was here, he would tell us there is no comma after God, under God. No comma before that. And so now we move to the portion of the meeting where citizens are allowed to speak. And this is on matters unrelated to our agenda tonight. We do have one such request from Cindy Nordell. Cindy, would you like to come up and talk to us?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name is Cindy Nordell. I'm a 20-year member of the community. 4 awesome kids, 3 have graduated from the high school, and 1 a senior. I'm going to be an empty nester soon. But I would like to come and bring it to the City Council's attention tonight of a proposed policy put forth by the Canyon City School District that was put into proposal and actually had its first vote on last Monday, which is July 25th. So I want to make sure that the City Council is aware and any public members here. This is a transgender policy that they have put forth. I don't know why they wanted to bring it in the middle of summer when nobody is really paying attention to school. I think that was kind of interesting. But we did get a lot of parents. We have almost 500 parents right now in 3 days that are interested in really becoming engaged in this subject. So I thought I'd bring it here. This transgender proposed policy starts off that in all instances, the goal is to ensure the safety, comfort, and healthy development of transgender or gender nonconforming students while maximizing the student's social integration. Nowhere does it talk about the healthy development of children that are not focused on transgender or gender nonconforming issues. This proposed policy is a travesty for kids and families that are trying to understand the world around them, and instead it caters to a small percentage of kids in the schools. We have 3 issues with this policy. First is that there are not clear definitions of parental notification or consent. And as a parent, and I'm sure some of you are parents as well, that is an issue of much concern for myself. We are building trust with our kids every single day. It is a work in progress, and when my child is told to keep something secret from their parents at school, that crosses the line, and that is not appropriate. So that is a really big issue with this policy starting off, and I think a lot of parents would agree with that. A second issue is sports. In this policy, all students shall be permitted to participate in physical education classes and intramural sports in a manner consistent with their gender identity. We all have seen the news. We all know that women's sports right now are being minimalized because of these kind of policies around our country. We have fought so hard to get women's sports where it needs to be, and I would be ashamed if our community allowed this kind of culture environment to invade our sports. The third concern that we have are really the shared locker and bathroom spaces in the high school. So this will pertain to anybody that you can. There's eliminating the practice of segregating students by gender. So if you're feeling like a girl, you can go into the girls' restroom or to the girls' locker room. There's no fine definition about what that would look like. if anybody wants to have their own separate bathroom, I'm hoping that they can go to the staff bathroom and ask to use that bathroom. The other issue is sports activities or any extracurricular activities going off-site where you have to stay in hotel accommodations or whatever else. Is the school going to provide a separate room for each one of those people that don't feel comfortable and are threatened by that kind of environment? That would be a huge cost to the school district, and as a taxpayer, I wouldn't appreciate that.
And
So-
Cindy, we do have a time limit. Would you wrap it up for us, if you would, please?
Yes, of course. So thank you for your time. I just wanted to get it in the minutes, and I will leave a copy of the policy for you guys to look at your own spare time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Do we have any council member announcements this
I'll
evening?
do the honor since you're running the meeting. We do have a general government meeting August 3rd, which is this coming Wednesday at 6 p.m. It's following the URA meeting. We will be discussing fence regulations and 2A priorities.
And I would thank you for that, Brandon, but I would also note that the URA meeting this time is in front of the general government meeting, and we've switched the hours on those. And so the citizens need to be aware of that. Any other announcements? Wednesday is KRLN.
Maybe.
Do we have any volunteers to go speak to the radio station?
I'll go.
I'll go. I can go. I think I can do that. I think I can fit that into my busy
This
schedule.
is my third time volunteering, and the last two didn't happen.
The
so-
last two didn't happen, all right. And our other volunteer is conveniently absent tonight. All right, with that, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Item 7A is to approve the minutes for the July 18th regular city council meeting, the July 20th vision meeting, and the July 11th special meeting, which was the energy franchise and city-county meetings. 7B awards bid 4122 for a 22-foot trailer to True Value Trailers of Penrose in an amount not to exceed $11,200. 7C authorizes the mayor to sign an intergovernmental agreement between the Canyon City Police Department and School District. And 7D is to receive and file a list of bills.
Thank you. And I would request that whoever makes a motion to approve the consent agenda that would move item C to the first one after our public hearing, if it works out that way, to item 10-1 before A. Amy?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, moving item C to the first for discussion under number 10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Schmischer,
Aye.
B. Smith,
Aye.
Stein,
Aye.
Worthington,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye. And with that, we now move to the administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. A couple of items that aren't in the administrator report. One is regarding the Tippecop event. They had a very successful event that the PD hosted to raise $3,500 for the Special Olympics. We also received word today that the PUC is granting our motion to intervene in the Black Hills Clean Energy Plan, so that is continuing to move forward. Regarding the written report itself, we have Public Works Director Kim Swearingen sitting down here. Kim has tendered her resignation effective August 12th. We are currently working, looking through proposals and speaking with vendors to do a recruitment for the Public Works Director position. Estimating that will probably be about $20,000 to $25,000. And then we're also interviewing and meeting with on-call engineering services as well to help cover in the interim. And both of those contracts will need to be signed prior to the next city council meeting. So I'm just giving you a heads up that those two contracts will need to be ratified. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions in the report itself.
Councilwoman Schmischer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I'm a little bit concerned because the last time that we retained a firm to do a search for a public works director, we ended up giving them quite a bit of money and did not have much in the way of results. How are you planning to structure it differently this time?
We're looking at different firms this time. One of the actually, two of the three firms that we have spoken to have done recent public works, had successful placements for public works positions within Colorado. So we're looking for experience within this realm and recent successes in that realm.
Councilmember Smith.
Actually, Councilmember Schmischer asked my question, so thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Schmischer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I also just wanted to commend the Planning and Zoning Department for their very helpful chart of all of the projects that they're currently working on and on the status, and also recommend it to the public for folks who might be interested in where are we right now with Love's Travel Plaza, or where is the Keystone Bridge, or where are all of these various projects that the Planning and Zoning Department has in the works. I think that this chart does a great job of updating everybody on the status, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I actually have a question on that. We see several comments, of several timeline dates where comments are due in July for Love's Travel Plaza, both Lot 5 and Lot 1, and the final plat for Keystone Ridge. Do you know, have those comments been received?
Yeah, comments have come in and were distributed to the developers. There were several comments that went out on Friday.
Thank you.
So, just the mechanics of putting together the packet, a lot of this information comes, the information submitted the week prior. So that's why you see dates in there that may have passed.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Then, if we have none, I will find a gavel. I will now open a public hearing on a new liquor license, hotel and restaurant in the city for Hotel St. Cloud at 631 Main Street, Canyon City, Colorado. City Clerk, would you care to give us a report?
Hi, I have not heard from the state yet because unfortunately they're still very behind. However, everything has been turned in. Everything that was required by the city was turned in timely manner 6 weeks ago, and we're excited about what's to come.
Thank you for that. Is the applicant here?
I'm Lorelei Thorne. I'm the Public Relations and Program Coordinator for Unbridled Acts, which is the charitable arm of Unbridled that owns the Hotel St. Cloud, standing in place of Lindsay Weiss, which is our Chief of Staff in Fremont County. She's currently on maternity leave.
Thank you. What would you like to tell us about your application?
Basically, we're just applying for one application for the entire property of the Hotel St. Cloud. Right now, it'll just be covering the Public House Bar, which will open later this year. And then next year, we'll amend it to cover the restaurant, which will be opening. The plan is when the bar opens, it will only be open Friday and Saturday because of the construction that will still be going on. Once the lobby is open, we'll likely amend those hours. And the plan right now, Lindsay Weiss is the manager of the liquor license, but our plan is to have on-staff managers and then eventually a GM that will kind of manage that liquor license and oversee all of those things for when it's running.
Thank you. And do you have a projected opening date or when you may be open for a service there?
Honestly, it's kind of ever evolving, but ideally by like the last 2 months of the year, it'll be open. I will leave a business card for Lindsay Weiss in case you guys have any specific questions I won't be able to answer tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. And are there any questions for staff or the applicant? Councilmember Schmischer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. My question is actually for the applicant. I was curious about the efforts made to contact residents in the immediate vicinity of the proposed establishment. I noticed that the petitioners were kind of from all over the city and county. The valid petitioners were obviously from the city. So I was curious as to what efforts were made to contact residents who were kind of right around the Hotel St. Cloud.
Yeah, we had the petition available on Main Street, just a couple blocks down, but we received them from people who work in our Apex office, which live around. So a lot of them work on Main Street, but maybe live elsewhere.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Then I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I move to approve the new liquor license for the hotel and restaurant St. Cloud at 631 Main Street, Canyon City, Colorado.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Schmischer,
Aye.
B. Smith,
Aye.
Stein,
Aye.
Worthington,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving to our agenda, we now have before us the School Resource Officer MOU. And I have some comments on that. Does someone else have some comments that'd like to get us started? Hearing none, I'll just jump in. I did read the agreement, and I did read the mission statement. And the mission statement says, "The mission of each SRO serving the school district is to provide and maintain a safe, healthy, and productive learning environment while acting as a positive role model and crime deterrent," and then goes on from there. Under the description of general duties, it says, "The parties have a common desire to promote a safe, orderly, and secure school environment." And I don't know if it's too late to amend the agreement, but I would recommend that the mission statement match up with the description of duties, that the mission statement read, "and maintain a safe, orderly, and secure school environment and productive learning," maintain a safe, orderly, and secure and productive learning environment. And that would be the only change in that, in that particular part of the agreement. Is there a problem with amending it at this late date?
It has been to the school district board and approved and signed. If we were to amend, we'd have to send it back for reapproval from that board.
And the issue, of course, is that I feel that our police department is properly focused on orderly, secure environments conducive to learning, and not so much safety. That is generally the job of the Department of Health. Do you have some thoughts on that, Chief Schick?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Honestly, I hadn't picked up on that. I don't know that you're wrong, but I think the spirit of our mission is in step with the mission statement written here, certainly within our general orders and how we participate with the school in providing that environment.
And you
So-
feel comfortable with that statement then?
I do, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Then if our police department is happy with it, I can be happy with it too. But I did have another question, and I understand that Paula Booser is here, is that correct? And
Yes, sir.
there's I have a specific question under the description of general duties. And it says that SROs may perform the following functions in furtherance of the goal. And it says, become familiar with district policies, regulations, guidelines, and codes of conduct. And my question is, what regulations does the district have the authority to enact? Is that a misstatement, or does the district actually enact regulations? Sure.
I really think it's probably just the language. I'm not saying we enact regulations. We have policies and procedures. And so the point of that statement is that they become familiar with those, so they don't enforce them for us, but they support us in those policies.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to think of a regulation. I mean, it could be, and maybe you can help me, Chief, but it could be a regulation for, some sort of
Truancy issue.
safe, yes, I mean, there's all kinds of, when you receive federal funds, there's all kinds of regulations that you have to follow, so nothing's coming to me at the moment. I know that's the same language that's been in the agreement for, I think, since 2003. So I've never pulled that little regulation piece out, but we always talk about, policies and regulations, so. And again, we don't ask them to
I think the
enforce them, we
terms
just
are
ask them to
interchangeable.
support them.
Excuse me, Chief?
I believe the terms are interchangeable. I think that's
Okay.
Yeah.
what the implication is there.
And so you're comfortable with that, with the wish
Yes,
of the-
sir. I have absolutely no trouble with that language.
Okay, great. And probably, Chief, this is a question for you. How many SROs are we planning on providing for the coming term?
Well, I'm really excited to announce, Paula and Adam Hartman, the school superintendent, we've been working in concert, collaborating. They have found the funding to bring in a third position. So we're going to have double coverage at the high school about 50% of the week, and the rest of the week, we're for the first time going to have an active SRO in the elementary schools.
Great, great. Do you feel that number of SROs is adequate for the task that we have in front of us? That's somewhat of a loaded question. I
It's a
realize,
great
because-
question, and I'm glad you asked it, Mayor Pro Tem. I am. My goal is to have an officer in every school. And I believe that's shared by Paul and Adam. We just have to find the money.
Just have to
Absolutely.
find the money.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's
We
a
see a
money
third as
issue.
being progress.
It is.
It's a
Indeed,
step in the right
progress.
direction, so.
And and those SROs will be covering how many schools right now?
8.
8, yeah.
8 schools. So we have a ways to go if
We do.
want.
Yes, sir.
We want one in every school. Councilmember Schmischer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Chief Schick shared with me some really wonderful thoughts today about the SRO program, and I'm wondering if both of you would mind just sharing a bit about the benefits of having school resource officers and why it's so important to have them in our community.
You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
You bet.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to read something to you first, and then I'll talk about it a little more. So I came prepared, hoping I'd have a chance to share. So it says, for almost 20 years, Canyon City Police Department has served our students, staff, and administrators to provide a safe and tranquil environment for education to take place. Each and every day, we don't only have school resource officers patrolling our campuses, ensuring our safety, but also can often depend on other command staff and officers to offer assistance and extra protection anytime there is a need. We are forever grateful for partnership and for making so many positive contributions that not only ensures physical safety, but also builds relationships with students. CCPD is an important part of our entire school community. And I guess I want to focus on that last part, the builds relationships. Yeah, they're there daily providing safety for our schools. Safety it's kind of a, it's a topic that everybody's talking about right now. But beyond that, they're at barbecues, they're reading to children, they're walking the hallways, they're truly building relationships with, and I'm going to be honest, with some children that may not know them in any other capacity than when they maybe have to show up at their front door for something that happened at their home. So beyond all the safety that comes with being a police officer that they offer us, that we take for granted, and all of our folks take for granted and certainly appreciate. It's those relationships that they're building, not only with the students, but with the staff and anyone who's part of the fabric of our school district.
Thank you for that. I do have another question on the next page. It says one of the SRO functions is to provide presentations and available educational resources in the areas of alcohol and substance abuse, related education, criminal justice orientation, delinquency prevention, civic responsibility, internet safety, child abuse and exploitation for students, parents, and other groups associated with the schools, if available and specifically requested. And Chief, have you been requested to provide any such presentations to the school?
We do offer those presentations, and in fact, we're looking to expand this year with the third SRO, some drug awareness classes. I have the last 2 junior law enforcement academies provided internet safety courses for our participants, and we're always looking for opportunities to get into those classrooms and build those relationships, help those young people understand the criminal justice system, some of the challenges that stare at them every day, and help them understand how to avoid becoming a statistic, how to avoid becoming a victim, those types of things.
And those classes have been mainly geared at the students, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Have you made any presentations to parents?
Have not done any presentation to parents.
Are you open to the suggestion, not necessarily initiated by the school, but if there were a group of parents that were concerned about some of the issues mentioned, would you be willing, would the department be willing to sit down with those parents and provide materials, do a presentation to them?
Unequivocally.
And the reason I ask is because in looking at the Colorado revised statutes under the criminal statutes today, this is something that the General Assembly has passed. It says the General Assembly hereby finds and declares that the sexual exploitation of children constitutes a wrongful invasion of the child's right of privacy and results in social, developmental, and emotional injury to the child, and that a child below the age of 18 years is incapable of giving informed consent to the use of his or her body for a sexual purpose. And there is a current controversy going on in town. And I would say, I would add to what the legislature found is that no minor child is capable of giving consent to sexual castration through medical means. And so you may receive a request from parents to discuss those issues at some future date.
Well, we welcome the opportunity to speak with parents, students, teachers, staff at the school. Our goal is to build some resiliency there and
Great.
help those families and help those children, move forward progressively and safely.
Great. Thank you for that. Any further comments on? So I think that then we can approve it as presented. Do we need a motion on that?
You will need a motion, yes, sir.
So, Brandon.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I move to authorize the mayor to sign an intergovernmental agreement between Canyon City PD and the School District Fremont RE1 Canyon City Schools.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Schmisher?
Aye.
B. Smith?
Aye.
Stein?
Aye.
Worthington?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye. Thank you, council. And now we move on to are discussion items, which I must have skipped a page here. We have next on the agenda that I have in my book, Resolution 11, Series of 2022.
That is correct, item 10A.
All right, thank you. So we have introduction and adoption by title only of Resolution 11, Series 2022, entitled, "A Resolution of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, approving a change to the Highway 50 West access control and pedestrian plans." And with that, Brian, would you like to speak to us?
Yeah, no, we've got this resolution, the Highway Access Control Plan, the West Access Control Plan was approved, I think, last year. This particular request or change came from somebody who's looking at one of these properties that would be affected by this change. And at this time, I will hand it over to Kim Swearingen, our Public Works Director, to talk about the resolution.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Pro Tem. As Mr. Stevens alluded to, we had some requests earlier this year to talk about the access of South 10th from Royal Gorge Boulevard. He was concerned that all traffic that would have to do U-turns at Ninth Street, which we all know Ninth Street is pretty much a nightmare as it stands currently. After some investigation, it was found that the properties, and it's not working, hold on. Oh, there it is. These properties here, this block, does not currently have easement for alley, which is what the West Access Control Plan was counting on for access to the properties behind various closed intersections. This intersection here was originally slated to be closed. So that means that this curb and gutter was supposed to continue all the way across that intersection. Now with this change, we will take that curb and gutter and put an entrance here so that trucks and cars can turn left. So originally, it was supposed to be closed due to wants and warrants. Wants and warrants are for accidents or any other type of activity that happen in an intersection. It is a way for traffic engineers to grade an intersection. This intersection was determined to be closed because of the left turn broadside collision as well as the cross traffic collision. So this change, although we are allowing the left turn lane, will be the only movement allowed across the intersection because we have to, by law, allow these properties to have access since we don't have any access any other way. The extra curb that you see here will prevent that on both sides. We also pushed it very far east so that they couldn't try to make that left turn across. It was mostly this left turn across through what we call the two-way left turn lane, which is currently out in Highway 50, or the twiddle as we call it, that anybody is pretty much a free for all. So it's a more controlled way of making that left turn and allowing folks in and out. The other concern, of course, we had was the proximity of the left turn lane onto South 9th Street. So we weren't able to, we originally thought we were gonna pull it all the way back and just make one single turn lane, but we felt that we needed to kind of constrict them here as well. So this is the proposed change. I stand for questions.
I like it. I just have a concern that if we let one intersection have a left turn lane, every business along Royal Gorge Boulevard is gonna want a left-handed turn lane as well.
Agreed, and we did look at that. So this change is only because of the easement issue.
I understand that. I just don't think the public's gonna understand that. And if I was a business that was on the south side of Royal Gorge Boulevard, I would be highly upset that you could not make a left turn into my business.
Agreed. I agree 100%. And I think that accommodation is made further down for those folks that have businesses that are learning that their left turn lane is going to be closed.
Right.
And I think that they have accommodation where they can make those U-turns safely or down the alleyways safely, whereas here it's just not a possibility, especially
Right.
with the current configuration of the Loaf and Jug site. Even if we were to try to ask for easement in any way, shape, or form through these various properties, we wouldn't be able to. And so even that's even happening on this side as well. We have the bank, we have the bank that does have access, but it is private access.
Right.
So, and the developer has also looked at possibly, because they're doing I don't know why that keeps doing that. They're doing a lot merger at the same time. So they were talking about making access across the back. Well, they can't do that either. They'd have to do a lot of negotiating easements, et cetera, to get across it. So we, as a collective, decided to do this fix, making sure that we are still keeping everyone safe. And I truly understand, you know, the political side of things, trying to explain engineering to folks that don't quite understand. But those other properties, like we mentioned, do have those accesses behind. And they do have ways of, you know, making those U-turns, whereas here it's just not possible. It's just not feasible. And in fact, we're still concerned with the left turn here, even turning into the Loaf and Jug because of these turn lanes here. We have a lot of concerns with this whole intersection. We're doing the best we can, though, with what we have.
I don't know how to fix it. but-
Retrofitting is the hardest part of engineering.
Councilmember Schmisser.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just following up on that conversation, have all of the property owners and businesses who have been impacted by these significant changes been contacted? And what were their responses? I think that, as Councilmember Smith alluded to, it's really important that we do extensive public education before we make significant changes.
We
to
probably had a
approved
year's
plans.
worth of open houses for everybody to come and voice their opinion.
But I mean, we are right now
Oh, yeah,
proposing
yeah.
to make a significant change to what was discussed during those open houses and during those conversations.
So
Has this significant change been discussed thoroughly and explained to all of the business owners who will be impacted by it?
we have not discussed it with Loaf and Jug. This property owner I spoke to last week, he was concerned because he had heard that we were making changes, and he was concerned about the widths. I assured him widths are going to remain the same. In fact, I mean, of course, he's going to be happy to get his access back, basically.
And that was one of his original concerns with the original plan, was that there was no three-quarter movement there.
And then, of course, the opposite corner is the one that initially brought it to us. So the two directly affected property owners are aware, yes.
I guess just going back to Councilmember Smith's concern, though, have we done education with all of the property owners who are being impacted by the Highway 50 West plan so that they understand this new change and why it's being made, so that we don't have kind of questions and concerns that come up down the road because we haven't made those outreaches and made those efforts to explain why we're making changes?
We have not done that with this change, no. That is the short answer. All of the outreach happened during the original highway pedestrian plan.
And this is a case where these changes are less restrictive than what was expected. And so if people were good with the restrictions, I'm pretty sure they're going to be better with less restrictions. And I have a question there. So at the intersection of 9th and Highway 50, so that is our stoplight. And if you're traveling west on Highway 50, you will be able to turn left onto 9th Street?
That is correct, yes.
And will you be able to turn left from that left turn bay into Loaf and Jug off of Highway 50?
No?
No,
No. Okay, so
no,
that.
there will be curb
that-
and gutter there.
That remains the same.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Your only ins and outs will be eastbound right turn, and same thing on 9th Street.
Yeah, so you'll be able to
Northbound
turn
right
here,
turn.
This turn remains the same. We are improving some of the pork chops and some of the handicap ramps in this area, but the right turn to left turn will remain the same, and the left turn, you can see their entrance here. This is all constructed curb and gutter to keep them from making that turn across into the loaf jug. So they would have to make the left turn and then the left turn.
And so the heavy bold part there, is that the part that has changed?
Yes, the heavy bold is the proposed configuration. The shaded back is existing.
So eastbound, you can take that left, correct?
This one here?
Eastbound, know the change?
This one here?
Yeah,
Eastbound, you cannot turn here.
you cannot, but
Cannot turn there.
westbound you can.
Westbound, you can.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's what makes it a 3/4. So we have one movement here, that's 1/4, one movement here, that's 1/4, and this is a quarter movement. So that makes it a 3/4 intersection.
Okay,
so my next question would be, at 5 o'clock, when everybody's trying to turn to get up to Dawson's Ranch, is that gonna cut that left turn arrow lane
This
to where
here or
traffic's
this
gonna back
here?
up to Mr. Ed's? The change,
This here?
yeah, because that's gonna be
So
a
if you
lane,
look-
right?
If you look at the next page, this is the end of the turn bay.
Okay,
This is curb and gutter here that stops. And so you have to be in this turn bay or you're gonna be out in the lane.
right, but what my concern is if you're westbound,
Oops.
but you're trying to make a left turn at 9th Street to get to Dawson's Ranch,
So if you look here, you have to stay in this, this is the turn bay for
Right.
10th Street. So if you're gonna turn left here, you need to be in this lane to make the left turn lane.
correct. But what I'm saying is though, is that turn bay to turn left, is it gonna cut that arrow lane so short that traffic
This is
backs?
original. This is
Okay.
original to the plan. This is not changed. This system has not changed. We originally were gonna make this one really long turn lane, but we decided against it.
Keep it short.
Yeah,
Yes.
but part of the problem there on the westbound RGB at 9th Street is there's an operational inefficiency of people trying to turn left into the turn lane at Loaf and Drug, and this will eliminate that, making the light operate better.
Okay.
Can I ask the question in a slightly different way? Is the turn lane there going to be shorter than it is right now?
That's what I was trying to say.
Yes. And that's because right now it's a twiddle. Like I said, it's a two-way left turn lane. There's no restrictions whatsoever on that left turn. You can turn left anywhere
But
there.
the
Because there's
cha-
no restriction.
The change in this resolution does not change the distance that
That's
was
correct.
previously approved.
Thank you.
I see issues with it, especially when you look at like the roundabout at 15th, when school gets out and gets totally backed up. The same thing's gonna happen with that left turn arrow.
And
It's gonna back all the way to Mr. Ed's because everybody's gonna be in that lane trying to turn left to get to Dawson's Ranch at 5 o'clock.
And so unfortunately, it's similar with any other type of engineering design. We can design anything to its perfect configuration. It just takes money. So we have the trifecta. It's money, quality, or time. So it's one of those things. So we have to make up one sacrifice usually for one of those three things. So in this case, what we typically design to is what we call a level of service. And there's A, B, C, and D. So, and sometimes F, which is obviously the worst. But when we are designing, we're doing it for that level of service A and B. It's like that perfect world scenario. Once we get to the C, D, and F, we have to kind of over-design things. And what you're thinking is, of course, the level of service D and F, which
Right.
is the time where everybody is going to the same place at the same time, at the same rate or whatever. So unfortunately, because we can't design to that because we need, a lot
Right.
of funds to do so. I mean, if in a perfect world, if you really wanted to reduce it from level of service F to an A, you'd put in a grade separated interchange. Well, that's not something that we could do. This
Yeah.
is what we have to do in the parameters that we can do it.
I understand.
And a change like this is also going to make CDOT have to look at the timing of that particular light, because it's going to operate and function differently, that intersection will, based off of these types of changes. So they may have to adjust the timing of the light to make it more.
Right. I just, my concerns come from a business standpoint. If I had a business on that side of town that tourists could not turn left into, and that's where it comes from for me, is tourism, because people that live here are gonna know that they have to make different routes to get to different places, but people that are just moving through and they can't make a turn, we're gonna lose that tax revenue.
Well, and truly, the intent of this project is to slow folks down. There's many benefits to the project. First of all is pedestrian safety, driver safety, all of those things that we're doing for this project. But it's also to kind of slow traffic down so that they do make those turns and.
That's good then.
I think part of the issue is that as it is currently configured, vehicles can back up in that left turn lane, east of 10th Street, that intend to turn at 9th. And the issue is for planners and designers is that there's no way to design that intersection to maintain that type of functionality. And that's really where the devil comes in with the details, that to be able to make this more of a slow zone where people are going slower, and that this was the best compromise that we could get. This subject was discussed a whole lot during the both versions of this plan, because we had two versions. And the issues associated with notifying store owners and everything was all covered
Right.
at that time. And that's one thing we did during the initial planning phase, was make sure that we did have, that all of the business owners were talked to. Luckily now, we're gonna make things a little bit easier for a couple of them, but that doesn't really change the overall plan. And with that, is there any more discussion? Yes.
I had just one other question. If I understood you correctly, Director Swearingen, the darker bold is the new?
Correct.
So is the intersection at 9th on the north east side, is that,
This here,
yes?
that's a reconfiguration of the handicap ramps.
Okay. Is that bringing that curb further out into the street, making that an even more
Here?
difficult turn?
No, it's making the connection here. That dash line right there is the existing curb, and it matches up. It's the lip of the gutter. So that's the gutter, because we have to represent every piece. So this right here is the lip of the gutter. This is the actual curb marrying the existing curb. So it's still in the same place.
So
Okay.
the other way to say that is all the changes are within the curb,
Yes.
not out in the street.
Yes.
Are they gonna change the speed limit through there, or is it gonna remain 30?
I believe it will remain 30.
Okay.
Any other discussion by council? Then I'm ready for a motion. Brandon?
Mr. Pro Tem and council, I move to approve the 10th Street southbound access Highway 50 Royal Gorge Boulevard pedestrian project and West Access Control Plan Amendment.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Schmisher?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Stein?
Aye.
Councilmember Worthington?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you.
And now we move on to 10B, second reading and adoption by title only of Ordinance 14, Series 22, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City amending certain section of Title 17 of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning signs, marijuana cultivation, fences, drive-throughs, and general submittal requirements. Mr. City Administrator, do you have a report?
Yes, sir. This is a second reading. We've not received any additional public comment, and staff would recommend passing on second reading.
Thank you, and with that, I would call for a motion.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 14, series of 2022 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Schmisher,
Aye.
B. Smith,
Aye.
Stein,
Aye.
Worthington,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye. Thank you. We now move on to 10C, second reading and adoption by title only of Ordinance 15, Series 2022, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City, amending Chapter 8.42 of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning chronic nuisances and clarification of protest procedures. Mr. Stevens?
Again, this is a second reading. I don't have any additional public comments, and staff would recommend passing on second reading.
Councilmember Schmisher?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I fully understand and respect the need to have a chronic nuisance ordinance. I think it's an important tool, as we've heard from our code enforcement officers and from our city attorney. I am concerned because during first reading, during the 3 discussions prior to first reading and first reading, I had expressed a lot of concerns about the level of discretion that this policy permits, and was assured by the city prosecutor and by others about what their intent was and how that would best be codified in the implementation policy or the training manual. And during first reading, I was told that I would receive a copy of that training manual or implementation policy prior to second reading. Unfortunately, it's still not done. Therefore, I think that we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, because if we don't know what the plan is or how it will be implemented, I don't think that we're quite ready to pass an ordinance on it. So I would move that we table it until the implementation policy or training manual is ready. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Schmisher. Do we have a second?
Was that a motion?
That was a motion to
I'll
table.
second.
That was a motion to table the ordinance until the policy manual has been made available to council members.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
Yes, sir. If I can ask for the motion to be amended to a date certain of the next city council meeting.
Could we ask for a date certain on when that implementation policy will be ready?
So I just received some language from code enforcement this morning, so I did not have time to review it and deal with it. Email was down last week, and so code enforcement thought it went through and it didn't, so it was just a little bit confusion there. So I apologize for that delay. I think we could have it by next meeting. I don't see an issue with that. Ryan and I are working out some language specifically related to the chronic nuisance and trying to figure out the best way to deal with the things we talked about last time. So, yeah. And then the policy outside of the chronic nuisance, it's not quite finalized. It's close, but we're not quite.
Our next city council meeting would be
The 15th?
August 15th.
Sure. I'm happy to amend the motion to table it until the next city council meeting with the understanding that we'll receive the training policy several days in advance of that. Thanks.
And
I'll second the amendment. And
we have a amended motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Schmisher,
Aye.
B. Smith,
Aye.
Stein,
Aye.
Worthington,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye. Thank you. And with that, I believe we've reached the end of our agenda.
We've got one more.
What, did I skip something? Sorry. Is this 16?
The charter amendment?
Charter amendments.
Thank you. I guess we're not at the end of our agenda. Thank you, Chief, for being here. So we have introduction and first reading by title only of Ordinance 16, Series 2022, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City, referring to the registered electors of the City of Canyon City, ballot questions concerning amendment to the charter. Mr. Stevens?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, we had 3 focus groups over the course of several weeks to get feedback. We had 1 to 2 people attend each of those focus groups from the citizens, as well as additionally, we had a couple of council members attend a couple of those sessions as well. The 3 items, or the 4 items that we're talking about, 3 of them are simple changes that bring us in line with Colorado Revised Statute. The Article 3, Section 5 is in regards to open meetings. Article 5, Section 5 talks about a provision in the charter where it talks about all employees holding their office of employment at the pleasure of council, and that provision will fix that portion of it. Article 15, Section 3, in regards to court fines, this current language references a specific number. The amendment changes that to just follow state statute as amended. And then the 4th section is a change to public parks and how they can be dedicated to the city, whether or not a vote of the electorate is needed. So you'll see ballot language in there. There's actually 2 versions. So when you make a motion, we would need direction on which version you want, or if there's discussion to change those 2 versions, we would need that direction as well. So the feedback from each of the focus groups, they all thought that the first 3 changes were fairly simple and straightforward. The 4th change around parks and having the electorate vote on whether or not parks should be dedicated. Those who attended thought that a change like this makes sense. There were some discussion about whether or not you change it so it's just parks and playgrounds versus changing all of the provisions which reference golf courses, swimming pools, and other recreational amenities. So that's why you have 2 different versions there. I'll ask the city attorney if she has any other additional thoughts or comments.
No, I don't believe so, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any comments from council,
I
Commissioner?
just have a quick one. What version do you as the attorney feel more comfortable with?
Oh, on the public parks?
Yes.
So I have some issues with the referral to the Planning Commission recommendation on the public park issue. And the reason why is outside a subdivision, the acquisition of a public space is really a budgetary matter for council. And so we'd be giving Planning Commission a duty that I don't think they're prepared for, and requiring them to get up to date on the budget and things like that. I would also note that at least currently, and this could of course change, there are no open space requirements in the subdivision regulations. And one thing I think to keep in mind with both alternatives is, I think these provisions are from the 40s, but I'm not positive about that. But they are old, and the language in them is old. Parks, playgrounds, those things are typically not dedicated anymore. They're often called open space. And so we've had instances in the past where we've taken open space without an election because it's not a park and it's not a playground. It doesn't have the improvements on it like a playground would. And so the language is just a little old. So that's just something to keep in mind, is more than likely if you have a subdivision come through, it's just going to have open space on it. But that's just a kind of aside. But if you really, if referring things to Planning Commission, I mean, it's in the land use code now, they'll see probably any type of subdivision that would have open space. But if referring to them for things that are outside the subdivision is important to you, my recommendation is a code amendment. Remember, charters are hard to change. These are forever, and you have to think 50 years from now, does this still make sense when we're all gone? And new people are sitting here and they're thinking, what were they thinking? So you have to think about it in terms of link. It's a document forever, because you have to get voter approval and you may never get it. And I think the history of this provision has shown that it's been really hard to amend. 3 times it's been shot
So
down.
version 2 is the one that refers to planning commission, correct?
Right,
So
yeah.
version 1 is your recommendation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a
Hang on just a second. So I think Amy was in line first.
Thanks so much, Mayor Pro Tem. I was going to suggest kind of understanding Attorney Sellers' concerns, still having a hybrid of the two, because I think the issue that we're trying to solve is around parks and playgrounds, and it's not so much about golf courses and swimming pools and things like that. So I think it makes sense with the first one in terms of striking parks and playgrounds. But I think what I heard in the focus group I attended was that there was still a need to ensure that we had that oversight and accountability and kind of public hearings around those ideas and concepts. So personally, I would suggest that we combine the two so that we're just taking out parks and playgrounds, but then adding in shall be referred to council after a duly noticed public hearing and approved by ordinance, or however the language should be. But take out the reference to planning commission, but keep in the duly noticed public hearing and approval by council. So you kind of have the best of both worlds. You're limiting the scope of the change, and you're also adding in that safeguard. So that if you do have public unease or discomfort with a particular acquisition, they have a chance to come and speak about it.
And if I understand correctly, if we look on page 3 at number 4, I think that the language that is being suggested there is, shall Article 14, Section 1 of the City of Canyon City Charter be amended to permit the city to accept land to be used as parks and playgrounds with approval by city council after a public hearing.
And I should mention, you can also change the questions themselves. I told Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick this and Councilmember Schmischer this, but you can, if you don't like the way the questions are phrased, you can also change that stuff too, so.
Great, and that's good news. Councilmember Worthington.
In an effort to catch up with things that have transpired that I'm not aware of, was there feedback as to why these changes did not meet the voters' approval, as far as was there any type of,
I think it's something that's lost to history.
okay, that's fine, and that, just curious to know if we had learned anything, so,
Yeah,
okay.
A lot of it.
Okay.
A lot of it is just to be compliant with CRS.
So we probably should take these one at a time is what my suggestion is. Did you have something else, Councilmember Schmischer?
I did, but it was about a separate one, so I'm happy to wait and mention it while we're taking it one at a time, if that's what how you would like to handle it, sir.
And so what we're voting on is, or what we're discussing and going through the different parts, is that the correct procedure? To take them one at a time because we have alternatives and,
Yeah, let's take them one at a time and we can focus on the text change and then if you like the question, the actual ballot question, and then go to the next one. That's probably best.
thank you. I think that would make me happy. All right, so we're discussing Article 3, Section 5, quorum open meetings, and we're talking about striking at which legislative matters are discussed or passed upon to comply with open meeting laws, current open meeting laws. And that ballot question reads, shall Article 3, Section 5 of the City of Canyon City Charter be amended so that the language regarding city council meetings is consistent with the Colorado Open Meetings Law? Do I have a motion on that? Or any further discussion? Yes, do them one at a time.
No, just one motion, just if that's
Oh.
okay with everybody, we'll just go to the second one, so.
So go through then proceed to the next one? Okay, and so next we have Section 5, all other employees, where we strike and shall hold their offices or employment at the pleasure of council. And the ballot language reads, shall Article 5, Section 5 of the City of Canyon City Charter be amended to clarify that city employees do not serve at the pleasure of council, and to ensure the charter is compliant with state and federal law governing city employees. Any discussion on that particular one? I actually have a discussion item, and what that is, it is really based on something that Councilmember Schmisser said earlier, is that it's a lot better to not appear to be taking things away from the public. Really, what we're talking about is the charter envisions that the city administrator is the person that runs the business of the city, hires and fires. It specifically calls that out in the charter. And so I'm great with the strike through of the actual charter language, but I think that the question on the ballot should probably read, be amended to remove contradictory language to ensure the charter is compliant with state and federal law governing employees and their employment. Because it is contradictory language, it gives the city administrator the power to hire and fire, but then it says, no, that's really the council's prerogative. Any thoughts on that, or?
I guess my only thought would be, is contradictory language specific enough to ensure that folks understand what it is that they're voting on?
They will see both the amended charter with the strike-throughs, I believe, in the information pamphlet that we will prepare. Is that correct?
Yeah, it will be, I don't know if it will be in the blue book or not, but it will be in the notice of election, the strike-through, and you can, there's statutory requirements for where that needs to be posted, but you can also put that up on the website and, you know, do your IT stuff. Yeah, but it won't be on the ballot itself, so.
So let me repeat my suggestion, is that instead of saying, be amended to clarify that city employees do not serve at the pleasure of council, but to say, be amended to remove contradictory language and to ensure the charter is compliant with state and federal law governing city employees and their employment.
I'm good with either one.
Yeah.
Is it sixes, or do you have feelings one way or the other?
I think they both accomplish the goal.
The only question might be if, what's contradictory? In other words, are we conflicted with state regulation, or are we conflicted with the charter? So I think the main thing is just making sure that it's simple, but understandable to the voter.
So I'm getting the sense of council that they would like to see the language stand as written. Is that correct?
Can I just throw out another
Sure.
suggestion? Okay. So I'm just going to start, shall be amended. Be amended to ensure the charter is compliant with state and federal law concerning the administration of city employees, or something along those lines. Administration is probably not the right word. Huh?
Authority?
Authority over city employees. That might be a loaded word. She's making a face from across the way.
I'm off camera, Catherine. You're not supposed to call out my faces when I'm off camera.
You should be glad we don't want the authority.
I just think contradictory is a bad thing to put on the ballot, that word.
Which word?
If we say that it's contradictory language, I think that's going to throw people for a loop.
Okay.
When they're voting and running through there, I think we need to make it as simple and direct as possible. Because they're gonna wonder, well, what does it contradict? So, and of course, nobody came to the meetings, but a few people that really know what we were discussing and what we're talking about. So we gotta, these are gonna be people that show up to vote. And if they vote down ballot, hopefully. We don't want them just to not vote for it, because that would put us in a pickle, wouldn't it?
I would leave it the same.
Yeah, would leave it the same, yeah. So I think contradictory is not, that would stop them.
Do you? You could say to clarify and then skip the do not serve at the pleasure of council. That's a very fancy legalese kind of phrase. So to clarify and ensure that the charter is compliant with state and federal law governing city employees and their employment. Is that okay?
I like it.
Okay.
Are you okay, Joe?
Sure. So, shall Article 5, Section 5 of the Canyon City City Charter be amended to clarify and ensure that the charter is compliant with state and federal law governing city employees and their employment?
And I'm good with that. Councilmember Schmisher, did you have a further comment?
I was going to propose virtually the same thing. So I think it's a great solution. Thank you.
Okay. And then moving on to our public parks and playgrounds.
I think we've got one more.
Oh, one more, wait, the municipal
They're in a little
court.
bit different order.
Oh, they're in different order, I see, that's
We can
what's
go to the
throwing me.
penalty one first, if that's easier.
Okay, let's take it in the ordinance in the order of the ordinance, if that's all right with everybody. So now we're at parks and playgrounds. And does anybody have, yes, Brandon?
No,
Oh.
Councilmember Schmisher had a suggestion on a hybrid.
He wasn't raising his finger to be recognized, he was
Yeah,
pointing.
I was
his
pointing.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Smith. I greatly appreciate the honor that you do me. My proposed hybrid would be, starting with alternative 1, striking park playground, which strikes park and playground in 2 places, and then adding in a new sentence that is coming from alternative 2, which states, provided the acquisition of any park playground shall be referred to city council, or shall be referred to city council after a duly noticed public hearing for approval. How would you formulate?
Shall be approved by ordinance after a duly noticed public hearing by council. You don't need conducted in there anymore.
Shall be approved by council after, shall be
Approved by ordinance.
Approved by ordinance
by ordinance of city council?
after a duly noticed public hearing by council.
Yeah, can we have the by council after the ordinance? Shall be approved by ordinance of city council after a duly noticed public hearing?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want me to say that again? No, okay.
I think I got it, but why don't you, one more time?
Okay, so we would be retaining alternative 1.
Right.
And then we would be adding a sentence at the end that states, provided the acquisition of any park or playground shall be approved by ordinance of city council after a duly noticed public hearing.
We have thumbs up on that one? Great.
Before we move on, I would just second your recommendation, Mayor Pro Tem, that we change the question on number 4 to match that, so that it states, be amended to permit the city to accept land to be used as parks and playgrounds by,
With
Sorry.
approval by city council after a duly noticed public hearing.
Do you want reference to the ordinance component of that in the question itself, or is just approval by city council after a duly noticed public hearing? Okay.
Approval by ordinance? Approval by ordinance, or?
Yeah,
Approval
I mean,
by-
do you want it to really match up, or do you,
Sure, it should match up.
okay, okay.
so that
Okay.
would be amended to permit the city to accept land to be used as parks and playgrounds with approval by ordinance of city council after a duly noticed public hearing.
Okay. I think we've got thumbs up all the way around on that one.
Catherine, can you read what you have, please?
Sure, hold on just a second.
Oh, you're being mean now.
Well, it's like when you use a foreign language translator, you put it in one way and then put it backwards to make sure it says the same thing.
All right, so I'm reading the question. Yes, that's what you want?
The question.
Okay, so shall Article 14, Section 1 of the City of Canyon City Charter be amended to permit the city to accept land to be used as parks and playgrounds with approval by ordinance of council after a duly noticed public hearing?
So we do not have to reference the without the affirmative.
That's the part they would like to remove, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, now we're ready to move on, I believe. Article 15, Section 3, penalty for violation. And we're deleting an amount and substituting in the amount authorized by law for municipal courts of record. And we have, that is number 3 on the ballot questions. Shall Section 3 of the City of Canyon City Charter be amended to permit the municipal court to impose fines and imprisonment in accordance with Colorado law and to remove reference to the city jail? Councilmember Schmisser.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I had one requested, I think fairly minor tweak to the Article 15, Section 3, changing the word "in" the amount authorized, changing that to "up to" the amount authorized, just so that our municipal judge still has discretion and doesn't always have to impose the maximum amount.
And that would be no change to then the ballot language.
That's correct.
Okay, is everybody good with that? Do we have a thumbs up on that? Thumbs up? Okay. And that's it then, is that correct? We got another one? No, just want to make sure I haven't skipped over anything again. Okay. So are we good? Now we need a motion then
As
on
amended.
the ordinance as amended.
And do you want me to start from the top and go over the changes before you make that motion?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So the first change comes to the language for Article 14, Section 1. So we're going to keep the strikeouts in Alternative 1. That's the strikeouts for park and playground being subject to the election language. And we're going to add a sentence at the end of Alternative 1 that says, provided the acquisition of any park or playground shall be approved by council after a duly noticed public hearing. I missed the ordinance. Shall be approved by ordinance of council after a duly noticed public hearing. Excuse me. The next changes in the text change for Article 15, Section 3. So the word "in" is going to be struck and the words "up to" before the amount. Question 2 for Article 5, Section 5 of the city, will read, shall Article 5, Section 5 of the City of Canyon City Charter be amended to clarify and ensure that the charter is compliant with state and federal law governing city employees and their employment? Sorry. Question 4, shall Article 14, Section 1 of the City of Canyon City Charter be amended to permit the city to accept land to be used as parks, and I'm going to suggest or playgrounds there, just to match the language above, with approval by ordinance of council after a duly noticed public hearing. And that's it.
Councilmember Schmisser.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Ordinance 16, the proposed 2022 charter amendments as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Schmisser,
Aye.
B. Smith,
Aye.
Stein,
Aye.
Worthington,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye. The amendment passes, and now I believe we are at the end of the meeting, and so this meeting is adjourned.